rua te maunga, ko manga wero te awa, I te tau o tōku pāpā. He oi, I roto I tēnei rohe, ko tōku waiaipo, ko no waikato te puaha tuakau hoki. Ko Uenuku taku ingoa. Kia ora everybody, I'm Uenuku. My father's from Ruapehu. My mum from Waikato. I live here at Tupuaha, Waikato, at the gates of the Waikato River, on a little mound called Onipoto, which is where we are now. Basically, I've been carving for about 20 years. Sounds like a really long time, but I sort of touched on stuff as I left school, and sort of headed towards tertiary education. But always had this knack for drawing. I think you could call it an emotional response to a lot of things as a young fella, but really I had an amazing upbringing, and it just kind of developed within me. Like, I wasn't really good at drawing, I wasn't really good at doing stuff. I enjoyed the process of just sitting down and drawing, and just sitting down and I was so relaxed and so just immersed in that realm, if you like, that that process stuck with me all my life. Just being able to just forget about the world and focus on what I'm doing at that time, and just finding the tools to get what I want to get out of what I want to do. So it's grown on me over the years, and now after sort of last 10-15 years, basically, I began doing punga carvings out of mamaku for garden art. Then I figured out people would pay for them, so I started selling them at the markets, and we had to sort of started turning them over as a product, and it was fun. It still is, and then that got me into what I'm doing today. So basically, the punga became a little bit more inaccessible, and so what I did was actually sort of moved into sort of more accessible materials. Your soft stones like Omaru stone, Hinuera stone, just the soft stones, bit of limestone, but more so into the native wood. So the native wood kind of is where it's at for me now. I've just found a deep passion and a deep love for just how everything's weaved together, in a nutshell. And so this is like what I do now is a lot more contemporary. I have had many teachers. I do have a master carver that I work under. His name is, he's my uncle Ted Ngataki, and he's the most humblest human I've ever met. And so I sort of try and personify it. Hopefully one day I'll grow up and be like him. That's all that is. So, big mihi to Matua Ted for taking me under his wing and allowing me the opportunity to make some of these big works for local councils and things like that. And Ngāti Tamaoho Huki, so he's based up there on the Papakura south side, and I drift in, I come in from my little humble abode here, go in there, stir it up and pull some mahi out of Uncle. Uncle just flicks mahi onto me, and I'll come back here and I'll charge him out down here, just smash them out down here in my little cow shed. And basically that's been me. I do a few works for schools and things like that now, and just things have developed into sort of contracts and things for other people as well, and doing a lot of private commissions here in this space. I've just started cleaning it. You wouldn't notice, but I was trying to keep this place clean, and tidy it up into more of a functional workspace for myself, but more so for the future of this place. I'm a very big believer on we're only a spark in time itself. Like, we're only just like a little patero in the wind, honestly, and we're just that's us, you know. You're here 1 minute, you're gone, you know. And so while I'm here for this minute, or however many years, I want to leave as much as I possibly can for the next generation. And that's all my goal has become. This how do I sow those seeds back into this very soil that I was grown from? How do I pass that on in today's 2020 vision for the next 50 years? And so that's my journey, is to focus on that and make use of it for as long as I can, but not only that, improve on it so that when the next fella comes along, oh look, Uncle Nook's left this and Uncle Nook's left that, or whatever. Yeah, so things get left behind. Alright? Kia ora, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. So my name's Maaka Potini, and I'm another one of the carvers here at Ngāti Trust. And we also, apart from Whakairo, rākau, wood carving, we also do things like pounamu and bone. I just want to share the info about the pounamu we have here today. So one of the misconceptions of a pounamu is people think that all pounamu is green. And they're right on one hand, but with the Māori hold three different types of stone: jadeite, bowenite, and serpentine. But the most commonly used is the jadeite because of how hard it is. So they were used for tools, weapons, anything practical. And then you had the other stones like these ones here, bowenite and serpentine, more used for ornaments and all that. Because they weren't that hard to use for stones and weapons, because if you were to use them, they'll break. And there are many names for pounamu. Of course, this one here. You can just see at the bottom there's a bit of yellow, and then it faded, kind of transitioned into the green. They called it raukaraka. What raukaraka is this here. Is the turning of the leaf from green to brown. So most of all the pounamu, their names come from natural resources from around. You have it is kokopu, which is spotted pounamu, and that comes from a fish. And you also have inanga. I'm not too sure if this one here is inanga, but inanga was the silvery, bluish body of the whitebait. But along with doing our tonga, for myself, it's important to how you wear it. When I talk about wearing it, I mean how you lash it, because it's another hononga to your tonga. So, for instance, I mean, other people do it, and that's fine. They like to just punch a hole, put a string through, put it on, and that's fine. But just for me, when I do my tonga, I like to lash it, just to signify that it's how precious that tonga is to me.
Good.
Right, kia ora tātou. So this little segment I will teach you guys how to lash this particular lash here. So the name, there's a few names: ring bolt lash, blanket stitch. But in Māori, we call it whiri, to bind. So this is what we're going to learn today. So I did a little little do up. So what you want to do is you want to drill your holes, however many that is, and so when you drill your hole, it leaves a sharp edge. So you want to countersink that hole just to make sure it doesn't tear your thread. So you got your holes, and then you find your middle one, and that will be your beginning. So what you want to do is you want to loop, even out your string, make a loop, push that loop through through the middle hole, sorry. Push that through. Then get in the tail, you want to go into that loop. Go into the loop and hook it. So that will be your first hitch. Then starting on whatever side you want. Take the tail and loop it back into the hole you start. So if you started through this way, bring right around, back in again, pull it through, underneath, make a loop and hook it. So you came this way, so this time you want to go back through this hole. Come through, make a loop on your thread and hook it, pull it tight. And that's what you should have now. So you've made two. Let's see if I can separate them. So you've made two hooks. You do as much as you want, but when you transfer it to the next hole, it's basically the same. So you find out which way you came through. So we went through this way, through the front hole. So we do the exact same through the front hole. Come in between your thread, hook it, pull. Now you reverse it, you come through the back, loop it, hook. So you just do that, over and over again. And I've made some different examples here. So the holes here are all aligned, straight line. You can alternate your holes, up down, up down. Over here you could step them, 3 levels. 1, 2, 3, start again, 1, 2, 3. And you can do that along your whole art piece, or you could do, a certain amount, say 10 holes, take a break for another, take a break, start again with your next 10 holes. It's all really up to you on how you apply it to your artwork. Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's how the effect you want is someone like this. Used to, like in this particular case, you used to bind your toa to your cord, or you could use to frame your artwork, or around whatever your artwork may be. Carving, painting, it's just another way of what would you call it? Expressing yourself, I guess.
Yeah, Uncle that taught me sort of didn't want to blow away any mana that you're putting in onto your carving, creating a meaning. And he always told us that by blowing on it, your humanness, air from you takes away what you're trying to put in.
Kia ora, he mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. I hail from Parehauraki, Pare Waikato, brought up more in Pare Waikato, super proud as well of my Parehauraki side in Tapapakanga. My nene's lands are actually we're actually at Tapapakanga, our ancestral whenua, and we look forward to going back to Tapapakanga regularly to keep the fires burning and to enjoy our whānau and host 10,000 people every year for a music festival. That also hosts the arts and multiple artists and ringatoim. I have been an artist for 25 years now, an educator. My discipline, I'm multidisciplinary. I would call myself a conceptual artist in that I conceptualize the work based on what comes out of the kaupapa or the theme. In 2018, Britta Mart invited me to create a ground installation, or invited me to create an artwork for Britta Mart for Christmas, and I was given free rein, and I'm about to do that again in November again for Britta Mart, and create a big draping piece that is yet to be conceptualized. And the one that was in Britta Mart Te Aro Takutai, I decided to bless the people for Christmas and bring back the waters, given that the waters were once already there. And so I created a series of raindrops that we made over 1,200 that spanned 300 square metre by 300 square metre ground. They were placed in such a way that children could jump, as we do. When I was a kid going shopping, and it was in a metro upmarket shopping retail place, and they had I remember as kids being dragged along, and so I used to play as I would be dragged with my parents to go shopping, usually mum, and the idea of creating an artwork where children could play as they accompanied their parents was something that inspired me. Another work that I remember well is the Waikawa series. I did a show in 2015 just before going to Chile on a residency, an artist residency, to work with some environmentalists and educators in Chile and Bosque Puente and forested lands. I created work titled Waikawa Acidic Oceans to bring to light the impacts of ocean acidification on our tribal lands and seas. And I happened to be in one of our marae wharekawa marae, and they had Niwa there and the scientists there, and they were talking to us about ocean acidification, the fact that our kutai, our mussels, were appearing smaller, that they're based on the acid basically, and that the paua were also smaller, and that they were having to breathe and work harder, so they were getting smaller. The snapper, the tamure, were which is the breeding grounds in Te Kapamona, the snapper, the throat, there's a bone in their throat that was disintegrating, and this was purely because of the ocean acidification caused by cow. And so I created a work which was called He Whakawaikawa Moana, one work, and it was a play on words. A lot of my exhibitions that I do have always been strongly play on words using text, Māori text generally, and I broke up the different parts of the word he whakawaikawa moana into these different words: moana, waikawakawa, awa, ika, that come out of it. They were placed on a very graphic black on mirrors, positive and negative. They were circular for cycles. There were 60 on one side to reiterate that essence of time, and there were on another side there was 12, and the one on the other side with the 12 also sequencing in time, relationship with cycles, and they had ao for the world, and when you flipped it over, the reverse of it was OA, ocean acidification. And I also made a short film that accompanied that work, and we shot Sam Ryan, a friend of mine. He shot a fish made out of gelatine. We played around with it ended up being red gelatine for that reference to whakapapa toto, our oceans, and we froze them. So I froze these in eco molds, and I pulled them out, and you saw the fish disintegrating before your eyes. And then you had I had domestic rubbish, and also the waimoana from Ōnuru Bay, and our own home domestic rubbish put into that ika, and as it disintegrated you saw the rapahi come out as well. One particular thing had a little army man that had been chucked in the rubbish that was like shooting at the ika and shooting at the land and going back to the people. So it was and it was also the mirrors were also created reflection too, that was created like that submersing yourself into the ocean, that reflection of bubbles, which is one of the ways that we can heal and uplift ourselves, te hiki, our wairua, and that the bubbles in Tangaroa and Hinimona. And so that work was 2015, and that was titled I roto i te kōpū o Hinirehia, and looked at our tupuna Hinirehia, and she was turehu, so the mirrors were also, because of the reflection, they were ethereal, characteristic or feature of her presence and her being turehu or patupaerehe, fairy. And the soundtrack as well was taken with all the different manu that came from Tikapa, and I made the track go around. It started the soundtrack, the audio started with gotta try and remember it. Started with the Pūreru Hua, because it girths and brings forth the rain, and then I was looking at Tongapuro and thinking, I want to use Tongapuro, and I looked in one of my books in there, and I opened up the book straight away, and it said Pūreru Hua, and that it brings forth the rain. And when you think of rain and ocean acidification, rain is the most alkaline and in its purest form, so it was like, that's going to be the beginning. So I started with the Pūreru Hua, and then I brought in the ha, the breath, and then started to bring in the manu, layered manu on top of one another, and wanted it to, I always remembered as a kid when I think of destruction, Bambi running out of the forest when the fire hits, and so I built these manu up into this huge chorus of sound, and then I wanted the sound of acid, and we ended up using meat cooking was the sound of acid, the closest sound of acid that we could get. So we used this meat cooking, and then what we did with the sound of the acid is that I reversed it, so it became flip on, flip off, flip, and made it cyclical, and it reversed itself back to coming back out of the birds going back down, the just exactly reversed back, and then ending with the pūrerehu again. So those are a couple of shows that I have recently made, and ones that have still stick in my mind. I'm known for birds, painting birds. Birds speak, my manu speak. They're usually addressed in some way, and I like to bring the general public, whānau, friends, use social media to ask them to contribute in some way, to bring the voice. A show that I made at Mangere, an exhibition, solo exhibition titled Kaitiaki, which talked about our lands and our seas. Had a big, I made a waka tangata out of pickets, political pickets, and asked everybody to send me things that were of issue to them, that they needed to get off their chest and remind people of. And it would be no purse seining, and that was from Ani O'Neill, and then a friend of mine, Star Gossers, she said, this is private property, no beach access, and that was to remind people. And again this year they had to remind people again during COVID times that the land going from Pakiri all the way through to Manga Whai, I think, is private property, Māori owned, and there is a road there that is by the iwi there is gifted to be used by the general public, for the general public, but it is a gift that mana whenua choose to let people go through. In the 80s, Lale had to remind people of this when they had forgotten, and again this year there was another instance where people were having to remind our people again of that this is Māori land. So other friends would bring in things, frack off, and it made up the waka, which was the waka tangata, and I called that work "With the Power of Thought, My Simple Tree Talks to Me." It was constructed in the shape. It was really abstract, constructed in the shape of a waka out of pickets, and it was also to talk about the Kōrero dieback, and Kōrero and our waka, and also to remember that the portage from the Waitemata all the way through to Taupo, and Waikato coming all the way through, having that main portage for us back in the days.
ora koutou katoa, ko Ricky Benaraho. We're at Kirk's Bush, and I just want to share with you some of the stories about some of the plants that we're going to look at. This forest, for a start, actually is a really, really old forest. We've got some beautiful native plants here, like taraire, puriri, pukatea, just to name a few. But all of those plants actually had significance to our people in past times. Here we are, we're looking at a taraire tree. Now taraire grow in groves, and if we look at the ground, we can see a lot of the taraire leaves on the ground there. And in past times, when warriors were on the move and they needed a safe place to sleep, they would sleep amongst the groves of the taraire. And the reason being is that the crunching of the leaves as people walked on them would indicate that there was somebody approaching. So it was like a warning signal. And that's why they actually chose the taraire to sleep amongst. The berries of the taraire, the flesh around the kernels were edible. Though they're quite turpentine in taste, and the taraire actually is related to the tawa tree. And so the tawa actually, in terms of eating of the berries, was more preferred than the taraire. To some tribal groups, for making whaea or hikaahi, taraire was one of the preferred timbers to use by the northern tribes. As we know, kakomako was used for making fire, so was mahoi, but taraire was also a preferred timber. In the separation story between Taine and Ranginui, when Taine pushed Ranginui apart from his mother Papa Tukutuku, he began to develop the forest environment, right from the little mushrooms and lichens, all the way through to the large kauri trees and everything in between. And that is what we call biodiversity. All of the different organisms of life, whether they be small or large, the seen and also the unseen, are all part of Taine's world. Kia is one of the plants which our ancestors gathered for making tukutuku, which you see in the meeting houses. But breaking off the head of the kia, they say that the kia would only give you what it wanted you to take. Looking at the tukutuku panels, the white patterns within the tukutuku panels is represented by the leaves of the kia, which were boiled and sun bleached into white. Kia normally grows along the forest floor, but when it finds a host tree to climb, it'll climb the host tree. So looking above me here, you can see the kia climbing up the host tree. And the older kia would send down arrow roots, which were harvested, and they were used for making hinaki, or traps for fishing and catching eels. It also has a fruit known as tawhara, or some iwi call it ure. Here we have a beautiful example of the buttress roots of the pukatea. Pukatea was one of the trees which Maui, after he returned from visiting his great ancestress Mahuika, he threw her fingernails into certain trees, and pukatea was one of them. The pukatea, or the inner bark of pukatea, is also used for toothaches, for placing it inside the cavity. And this tree tells us a little bit about the history of this area, because it's about 400 to 500 years old. And this tree would have been standing here way before the noise of the traffic, which we can hear in the distance. It's a shame when you look at the forest environment and you look at these trees which have been graffitied, and you wonder why those who have done it have chosen to paint over the trees, over this beautiful forest. You can see that there's a disconnect between Papatūānuku, between nature and themselves. Maybe they need somewhere to go, some place where they can go and express themselves through the art.
So one of the things I've noticed over the years, telling stories or sharing stories with people as we shiver in the dawn on the land, is that people hear more than what I tell them. And I can only assume that people are hearing the memories that the land itself carries. And I think in every culture there's a recognition that a river will carry its own memories. And it's really at that time before the dawn, in those situations where we've properly surrendered our grief to the memory of those who've passed on, where we've given recognition to our genealogy and to our place and where we are, that we can, in our own personal way, tune in to the memory carried by the rivers, by the land, by the trees. And these things touch everybody. They're not exclusively Māori things. One thing I've noticed is we can't determine who the Aitua or the Atua will talk to. They make their own choices. And they don't seem particularly fussed about whether it's a descendant of or anything like that. When we do the circle around the fire and people give expression to their own thoughts, it's plain to see. Anyone can connect to the spirit of the land if their hearts are open.